Welcome to the Best You podcast, where we explore the journey of inner peace, harmony, and joy that comes from living authentically. Every week, we will dive into transformative conversations that describe both the way you can create behavioral change for yourself and how to create the conditions that promote peace, harmony, and joy around you. Whether you're seeking balance, deeper relationships, or a spark of inspiration, you're in the right place. So, hi, today on this version of The Best You, Scott and I are here to discuss our inner truth and our intuition, our gut feelings, and how important that is that we're aligning our head and our heart and our spirit or our soul with our understanding of who we are and how to be ourselves in the world, how to make decisions. And I'll just start with a little bit of my own story before I hand it off to Scott for his thoughts. But I might have mentioned on this channel before that I was a diehard atheist for most of my life. And I was also the sort of person that believed that everything is knowable or measurable eventually, that the left brain, our cognition, can understand and solve everything. And so even from this point of view, though, and I have to admit, I was somewhat arrogant. Some people might say super arrogant about my ability to figure things out and understand things. But when it came down to really hard decisions, there was a wiser piece of me. Like, yes, I was smart, but maybe not so wise. But a wiser piece of me knew to do a gut check and see how I really felt about it. And so actually the way I would do this is I'd list the pros and the cons, or like if I was choosing a job, this job or that job, or this car or that car. And I'd put all the criteria and I'd give each of them a score and I'd add them up and I'd get a number at the bottom. And if you were just to go by pure logic, I would go, okay, the one with the highest number would be my choice. But I realized fairly early on that that's an incomplete process, because I noticed that when I would say, okay, I'm going to do the one with the highest score, I would notice how I felt about it. And sometimes if I felt unhappy by that choice, but happier by the choice with the lower score that logically did not make sense, I was at least wise enough to realize that was more important, that I had to follow my heart there. And this is probably the one place in my life that I actually checked in with something other than my brain. And so this younger version of me eventually, I feel, has become wiser and more intuitive and more able to use other forms of intelligence other than cognition. Because if you look at Gardner's intelligences, there's something like 9 different intelligences: kinesthetic, musical, mathematical, logical, intrapersonal, interpersonal, naturalistic, and so on. There's probably others that I've missed. And so if you think about how wildly complex our world is, why would we rely on one form of intelligence? And so in my older years, I have just decided to really rely so much more on these other forms of intelligence as well, that it's not just my brain, which I know tends to be judgy and fearful, or my ego, same thing. And so Scott and I just thought that this was an important topic, that we explore this deeper side of us, what our beliefs are, what our hopes and dreams are, and that this as a process to helping inform the mind, both from our heart and our soul, so that we can be congruent, that all 3 can be in alignment. And that this is maybe for me, it has been a much more effective way to live a satisfying and happier life. And to just encourage listeners to take the time to do that gut check, do that heart check before making serious decisions. And these days I do that even while making non-serious decisions, because you never know what the ripple effect of things will be. So I'm striving to check in with my body and my heart all the time as much as possible. How about you, Scott? What do you think? You said that this was important for peace, harmony, and joy.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really critical topic, especially in today's times with all the change going on, all the information we're getting, whether it's social media, TV, our friends. I mean, there's just so much, at our fingertips, and even AI, and the question is, do you simply follow what logic tells you, what AI tells you, what your friend's logical approach tells you, just again, what the data says, or do you trust something bigger? And I personally believe that you cannot live your life just looking at the numbers, just looking at what everybody else is doing. It's amazing to me how many people, you know, just do things because everybody else is doing it. They follow the herd, and then they are not prepared and don't understand why something goes wrong. Whether it's buying a stock or whether it's joining a club or just whatever their decision is, they don't understand why it doesn't go right. Everybody else is doing it, or the numbers all pointed to it. And I just am a big believer that there is something bigger going on. That you know, the universe, you can call it God if you'd like. There's something bigger going on, and um, it doesn't rely on numbers and it doesn't rely on logic. It connects with our intuition. It connects, with our deepest, being. And I can't tell you how many times when, logically something looks like the right thing to do, but my intuition tells me it's wrong. And I'll tell you one of the examples I'll give you is with people. I can't tell you how many times, somebody has done me wrong and logically, you should go tell them that they hurt you, that they did you wrong. You should maybe teach them, or you should help make sure they don't do that again. I mean, there's these things that you logically feel like you should do because they should know. And at the same time, my intuition says, wait a second, this is a person who has feelings. They're doing the best they can, and they may not take my help properly. It might hurt our relationship. It might hurt them. And so, you know, I am one of those people that whenever I'm in a situation, even though logically I get these, so many times I get this, you need to do this, this is the obvious thing you should do. I can't tell you how many times, especially when there's people involved, that I think twice, and my intuition so often saves the relationship, has a better way, and it's amazing, when you're, and this is the peace, harmony, and joy thing, when you're calm and you're kind of connected, when everything's kind of aligned, and how you will make good decisions. But just don't trust the numbers and don't trust your immediate instinct every time. Take your time to connect and make sure that you are doing the right thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, doing that gut check, that heart check, like as I am about to move into implementation of this decision, how do I feel about that? And to pause and stop and assess that. Um, so I want to ask you, Scott, like you spent a lot of time in the corporate world, and even though the data might say one thing, you're saying that taking care of the relationship has always paid off for you. Do you want to say a little bit more about that in terms of how that pertains in the corporate world and when it's so metric driven?
Yeah, that's a great area to discuss because we're all, one shape or form having to make business decisions. What's our job going to be? Where do I want to work? And then, when I'm doing my job, the data says this. Do I just kind of blindly follow it? And I will just simply say, one, if you're going to choose a job, don't do it just for the money. Don't do it just for the logo, the brand, the the grandiose experience that might go with it. Think about it, is this something that you would enjoy truly? Do you have a passion for the work? Do you like the people? But I can't tell you how many times I've seen people switch jobs for financial reasons. Of course, I mean, I got to make more money. Or it's a bigger organization, it's more well known, and then they're unhappy. And so I think that's a big example of, don't just follow the numbers, connect with your intuition. But also, I liked what you asked, when you're in your job, I can't tell you how many companies, how many people are following the data, especially with AI. And AI is a great tool, and data analysis it's a great tool also. I will just say this: I've seen so many mistakes made in business from people who just simply follow the data. The data is a predictor. Data doesn't know what the future holds, and all I can say is, if you don't take some time to think about what the data means, and what is going on in the world or in your area of the business, and really kind of think about, how this could play out, the way the data is saying, or maybe if the data is wrong, what that might look like. I think you will be amazed how many times you'll make a better decision.
Yeah. The data may be right, but it may also be incomplete, that it doesn't assess all of the pertinent variables of the situation, and that it often does not include the human element. So, for example, you might say, well, we need to maintain our workforce, but we need to cut salaries by 20%. That's what the data says. Well, you didn't plan on the revolt, so that kind of thing. But, all in all, this is all about discerning, right? So whether you're using data or using your intuition, or following your heart, how do you choose? And I think sometimes I have seen people say that they're following their intuition when they're not being logical. But instead of really their intuition, that they're reacting. They're just jumping into something. And so, I mean, of course, that's up for each person to decide if they're just reacting to something, or have they really taken the time to slow down and to really think deeply, feel deeply, check in with their body, or they just going with basically confirmation bias. So confirmation bias says that we just tend to notice things that affirm our belief, and we ignore data that refutes it. So are we reacting and just because it's easier, or are we really thinking deeply about it? I used to follow my whole life was led by following my logic. And when I got everything I ever dreamed of, according to what my head said I needed to be happy, I was miserable. And I realized that if I wanted to be happy, I needed to follow my heart. So I feel like, for sure, like that was just a real wake up call for me, Scott. And I feel like when we're dealing with emotions, whether it's our own or other people's, that being too in our head and data driven, without considering the human part, is just likely to just create a lot of problems. I'm not saying that you don't ever go with the data. I'm just saying that if you have to do something, or if you're planning a path, to consider the human element and how are people going to feel about this. And that's called emotional intelligence, to use emotional information to make better decisions.
Yeah, and I think, we've been coming at it from, if you've got all this data, when do you trust your intuition? But what about, let's come up from the other side. You got all this intuition. When do you actually, trust data to supplement your intuition? And I think that is, another, area where a lot of people don't really care what anybody's saying, what the data shows. They just think they always know best. And sometimes they just think that they're right. Their gut tells them. Sometimes they're emotional and they just, this is, what's in their head. And I think that you're wise to integrate the two. And again, that, get back to peace, harmony, and joy, when you can calmly, put yourself in a place where you put all this information, the data, your intuition, all this in a place, and then harmonize it. Really put it together like a jigsaw puzzle. Make all the pieces work together. Then all of a sudden you'll get this kind of joyful picture, and that's the goal, is to bring it all together and then let it lift you.
Yeah, so important. And again, like what you just described is um, discerning whether it's intuition or being closed-minded, or giving the ultimate trump card on data. Like, well, I just don't believe it because this is what I feel or believe, you know. But where you are open and humble and taking in all sorts of information, whether it's from the data or from your heart or what your gut is saying, and that you weigh it all together. Um, and I think one good rule of thumb is, have you really made a good faith effort to explore each of the perspectives? And are you defensive or angry about your position? Because I feel like if we're in an leading from our heart or our intuition, that there's just more openness around that. Like, this is what I feel, this is what I think, but I'm not positive. This is just what feels right. But being open to hearing other perspectives or data or doing some research. Because as somebody who's really focused on my intuition for the last 7 years, I had to learn pretty quickly that one of the best things I could say about my intuition is I may be wrong. Like, just going at it with a lot of humility. And even speaking from my heart, it's like, well, this is how I feel, but how do you feel? You might feel completely different. And, that there's space for everybody's perspectives and feelings to be heard.
It's a huge point. And I know one of the things I've learned in life is, even for simple things, it's amazing how many different perspectives exist. And, that's more data. That's, and I will just simply say, I can't tell you how many times my initial intuition, my initial assessment is not the best. And that's why I encourage, everybody, what I've learned is to take some time. I mean, especially important decisions, take some time. And it's amazing how, again, the data and your intuition, everything, other people's perspectives will help you to build towards, the best decision.
Yes. So it's harder, it's more time consuming. Um, but if you can have a better process and outcome in the long run, I personally just find it is so worthwhile taking that investment. And if nothing else, finding my inner truth so that at least I know where I stand in a situation. Because if the group wants to do something that I just feel is harmful, for example, that I can be clear about that. And I can also just say, I honor this group's, decision-making process, and I trust that you all have decided what you feel is the right thing to do. And this is not for me, thank you very much. I can engage on something in some other way. That we can just be clear about what we will and will not participate in. That's super important.
Yeah, that's well said, and great advice.
Yeah, so great food for thought, and hope everybody take that pause and get to know themselves on that level if you're not already, and to build that into your decision-making process and how you understand yourself in the world. It's such a beautiful gift to yourself to get to know yourself and each other in this way. Final thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, I think we are blessed to have so much information to make good decisions with. Again, data, intuition, others' perspectives. I think the goal is to use it to the best of your ability. And I think it's even something that takes experience. Encourage you to take time, as Sana said, take time, be thoughtful, and I think you'll be amazed how wonderful your life will be.
Yes, and build peace, harmony, joy that way. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks,
Thank
Scott.
you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Best You podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked some new ways for you to cultivate your inner peace, connect meaningfully with others, and embrace the joy of living in harmony. Remember, being the best version of yourself isn't a destination. It's a daily practice of growth, reflection, and kindness to yourself and those around you. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it for you to subscribe, share it with somebody who'd benefit, and leave a review to help us spread the message of peace and joy. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time on The Best You.